Hey, sorry about that. I had it wasn't recording, so I had to restart the meeting. If Leon is here, are you here, Leon? Hello. So today is obviously completely experimental, and we have no real idea what we're doing. Obviously, it would be really good to go through what Adam is thinking about specifically, and what Fabian is thinking about specifically, and of course, Leon, what you're thinking about specifically. We also, depending on how much we want to do that, just going to make a link here. I made a Google Doc. Can you believe it? Hang on 1 second, okay? I just did it this morning. It's a public holiday here, so yeah, I wasn't properly awake, everyone. Yeah, so it would be useful. So Adam, you nicely badgered me last time about the importance of being able to read one document. Obviously, one at a time, they can be next to each other, but you said the reading is really core. So I think we should start doing such things as just writing down the kind of things that should be done when you're reading one document, as well as what we've been talking about when working in a wider space. Over, and good morning.
So, sorry, can you explain it a bit more? This not being able to read properly side by side?
So Adam, correctly, okay, so I've been a little bit frustrated over the last few weeks with trying to get the group's perspective on how we can work in some kind of a knowledge space. I called it a map sometimes. We don't have a better word yet, but you know, what are the elements we should be able to move around over here and over there and all of that stuff? And what are the interactions? And we need to keep working on that for sure. But Adam also said, let's not forget, the user needs to be able to pick up, so to speak, one document and interact with it in useful ways as well. So we must not ignore that. So that's why I put together this. Hang on, I got to say good morning. So that's why I put together this Google Doc where I haven't really started, where we should write all the elements we think should be extractable from a document and all the, oh, actually, sorry, 1 second. Edgar, please bring me your Minecraft book. I'd like to show the guys, okay? And what we should be able to do. That's all. Just to really focus on that part of the experience as well. What do you want to talk about today, guys?
Did you start, Leon?
Yeah, I think we both felt that we were starting together at the same time. Well, now how about you start? I don't have my brain has to start up first.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so one part is what do we want to do, kind of with text, with the academic text, somewhat Sloan related or very, yeah, Sloan related, let's say Sloan related. Yep.
This is very relevant to start the day. Edgar would like to show this. Come into the picture. I'll show it, but you come out. So Edgar has this book. It's a Minecraft book. It's obviously, as you can see, it's a physical paper book. It's not a filter.
And he is like a protector of the village, and I have that guy.
Open it up. It's a
Oh wow!
These creepers, they blow up, and they're zombies and skeletons. This is a village.
Yes, but don't show anymore because the guys are coming this weekend. They can see it for real. Don't show them everything. Some of it should be secret.
But they haven't seen all of it.
No, they're coming this weekend. They can see it with you properly. So that's what we want to do, right?
Exciting.
In XR, we want to have pop-up books. Instead of exploded books, we can call them pop-up books, maybe.
Mhm.
So, Adam, sorry about the interruption. Please continue.
Yeah, so one thing that would be nice to cover today or soon is I want to hear about your ideas for the space and text and intellectual text work. What you would like to do, and if you would like to do any particular experiments as that can inform us and how to coordinate what is overlapping and what is unique for each exploration, and for the overlapping parts would be nice to see what we can do together in terms of interactions or infrastructure and so on. It would be good. We haven't talked so much about the different experiments that we want to do, the more directly or more concrete on in what we want to do, like your thing, Leon, with the contextual zoomable text that you showed recently. That's one thing, and I'm interested in, apart from the regular kind of spreading things around, how voice ties into everything. I think voice interaction, not just dictation, but voice control and some sort of hybrid thing between voice dictation and voice control. I believe it will be I think it will be perhaps not the dominant interface, but a very important interface for the coming 10 years. And it had started to take off, and I think it goes well beyond XR, in that we will have ambient computing. We talk to the room, or we talk to the, well, it could be to the mobile or your laptop as well, but that it will be much more important to speak to your computer. And now with the LLMs, we can actually make the system understand or translate it much more precisely. It's not just hit or miss. And we have the opportunity now to do a bit more conversational voice as well, not just voice commands, which has been the dictation, or voice command, which has been the major two components. Now we're at, even with homebrewed computing, I think we have voice as a conversational interface, and it requires very special considerations. I think how you by progression build up a result you want. That was one random thought with the voice thing, but I'm also interested. I really want to know what Leon and Fabian is thinking here, as it will. We know what Frode is cooking up sometimes, and we also know the official Sloan thing with Andrew. But it would be nice to see the other thing. Long start here.
No, that's good. I just want to say I have a little more on the Sloan thing. I had a lovely meeting with Deanie on Friday, which was quite random. So there's some things came out of that that's very useful for us. But when you're talking about voice, I'm actually very supportive of that now. I wasn't in the beginning. Obviously, voice in support of text interactions, not by themselves, would be my personal interest. However, in Doug's NLS, when you wrote a command, you could always hit the question mark to get option for what the next logical bit could be, right? And we've talked, Adam, about how when you see on a pop-up menu or equivalent, maybe in brackets in gray, it says, this is what you would say to speak this command. What we might also think about doing is, if the user chooses to have it on, at the bottom of the screen, almost like a HUD style, when the user starts speaking, it transcribes it. And if they pause, then you can see a list of options of what they might say next that the computer will understand. So like you would say, select all, and then it would show elements, people, so it would be an augmented speech interaction with visual feedback, maybe. So that's one little thing. But just to report, because yes, I really want to hear what Leon has to say with your questions. The chat on Friday was based on what you and I talked about, Adam, which is the annotations and colors and logic. So I needed an academic to find out what this should be. So I thought maybe calling Mark, but it was a bit late. So I called Dini. She had time. And so what this thing now is called is semantic annotation, just to give it a name. So it's not just plain colors. And we built up a few things. This should be ready in a day or two in Reader, so we can all see how it feels. But it'll be things like agree or disagree. So there's different kinds of annotations, of course. One is for yourself. You're reading a paper, you want to know for the future what to go back to. Another one you're reading for someone else. You want to tell them, you know, this is a mistake, all that kind of stuff. So we developed a list of that. That's called, as I said, semantic annotation. Now, particularly for you, Leon, the other thing we talked about is an extension what Adam and I've talked about a little bit, which is what we call these spaces. You know, we've tried it in the groups, and it's been a bit easier offline. No, actually, you know what? Sorry, this is, I'm not at all changing the topic. Just give me 3 seconds. So many things happening. Okay, just listen to this. Hang on 1 second. Oh, what? It's not playing? Hang on. Maybe because it's being, okay, hang on 1 second. I'm so sorry. This you should be able to hear.
For this demonstration, you will have access to the ACM hypertext proceedings shown here in front of you. Just point to it and pinch your fingers to open it.
Right. So based on what we've been talking about, I've been writing a script. You could hear that voice, right?
Yeah.
It's actually very, very good. That one was medium, but I'm going to skip through some things because this is what I think.
Sorry, was that a real voice or a generated voice?
Generated.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's gone crazy. So okay, I'm going to generate, download, and play the second one to you.
Please point to ACM hypertext proceedings by pointing to it with your index finger, making sure the line which will then extend from your finger lines up with the proceedings. Then pinch your index finger to your thumb.
Crazy, right?
That's super impressive.
It even breathes. At a certain point, you can hear it breathe, right? So the idea
which voice generator is that?
play.ht.
Play.ht. Important.
Yeah, so the thing is, it does it in kind of paragraphs. So there's a little break between each paragraph. So that's how we can do that. So hang on a second. Right, so this would be the first one.
You are starting here in the library. You are now in what we call the reading room.
It's crazy good. So this should be quite brief, but this is, I think we're now on the same virtual page. And we start with, so yeah, the way that I'm trying to do it is write the scripts. There will be an audio when someone puts the headset on. So instead of us speaking to the person, I'm imagining an avatar speaking this. This is not necessarily something we'll implement, but it's to help us make it salesy and explainable. If we cannot explain it through the script, we can't explain it. That's the thinking. So first of all, we're thinking, well, Adam and I thought maybe, and I'm sure you'd agree, Leon, actually, well, we call this Augment. The whole system is called Augment. So welcome to Augment in extended reality. You're starting here in the library. So we just tell them where they are. And then we tell them about the hypertext proceedings. And then we don't say the gun gesture anymore. People didn't like to. We just quite simply say, pointing with your index finger, making sure that blah, blah, blah. So we tell them how to point. And if they don't do anything for 10 seconds, it tells it again in a different way. But here are the key things. You're now in what we call, yeah, okay, if you open a document, or many, you're in what we call the reading room. And the idea that Adam has really been pushing, and I agree, but it's been difficult, is that you don't leave the library. The library is still somehow there in the background, so to speak, right? But now you're by reading room, it means you're in a position where you can really focus on one document at a time. You can have several open next to each other, but each one of them is a focus for that document. And then you have things in that space that can influence how you read. We call these elements. And finally, the last terminology is that once you've gone through and made all kinds of things, and this is how you want to see it, you can save that as a workspace.
Mm.
So that's basically what we have right now. And I could talk for another hour, but I will shush.
You mean workspace as a preset?
Yes. So when you, one of the things that I have in author in the map, which I think is transferable logically, is two options when you're in a kind of a map view. Let's just call it that, even though it's wrong, right? We all know what we mean. One is elements to choose what should be viewed. You know, show, hide people, show, hide LLM, show, hide whatever. And another one called layouts or arrange, where whatever you have selected, you can do align as a column or whatever. And probably under layout is where you would save the workspace, but that isn't self-evident yet.
Mm-hmm.
So to clarify, Frode, when you said hearing Leon's question here, did you actually mean that the workspace is more like you don't like the word template, but a template for another kind of that you save a way of working? Is that what you mean by workspace? I understood workspace as a specific project space, more like that.
I think the word template, I think you're completely right on everything you said, Adam, which is the first. Just kidding.
But it was a question, so
Yes.
how can
No,
I be right on the question?
Yeah. First of all, a saved workspace is a template. Yes. Right? Because the thing you are saving is not the document itself. You're saving everything around it. So you're saving, let's say you're like George Washington. He's very important in your work. So you just have the text George Washington on your physical wall, virtually. So whenever you are in a workspace that deals with history and American history, you use the George Washington is here workspace. If you're working on
so a question there. Let's say we have something resembling tools in XR tools, things that affects other objects. That kind of tools. It can be on you, resembling kind of a working belt or something you carry with you, or you can have a workstation that is more fixed to the space. So either it's on you or in a space. I'm doing like physical metaphors here, real life metaphors here. And same goes for the George Washington poster. It can either be content, as in something you work on right now. You annotate your George Washington image or poster or PDF, or it can be for mood setting or for visual recognition that you know from a distance that this is your history room and so on. So the same content can be in different or fulfill different purposes. Sometimes it is an object you work with, and sometimes it's for the mood, and sometimes it's for a general kind of a reference thing that you always want to have at hand in any history room. So we need a way to promote or annotate or make the George Washington poster to show that in this room it's just a poster for mood setting, and in this room it's a reference thing that should always be there, and in this room it's just content, it's just a thing that you work in. So there are categories here. If we want to go the route with having some sort of templated workspace.
Yeah, that's really, really important. Now, adjacent to that is the issue of how modular the system should be. One thing we've talked about is when you go from the library to the reading room, you should automatically go. The Sloan Andrew stuff. However, it should just as easily go into something Leon is building, Fabian, Adam, whatever. So we don't want it to be cumbersome to go from one place to another. I think we should consider that within your body-worn equipment as well. You know, we have that sphere, the Andrew sphere from Fabian. I would like some more of those. And I think, you know, when you do different work at home or in the garden or whatever, you may carry different tools. So I would consider Workspace an ideal thing for that as well. I'm now in a different workspace, so I actually carry different tools.
Yeah, and with virtual, we have a very special situation in that you can copy your tools. I have how many versions of the same brush or scissors or whatever, and it could be arranged for each workspace, which is very different from real life, where you have to carry around your favorite tools because you don't have 10 different versions of the same favorite hammer. You have one or two, perhaps, if you have one at work and one at home and one at the leisure house. So there is this notion of, or we have the opportunity here to do arrange perfect workspaces where you have the tools, as sometimes the tools inspire specific work. Just seeing the tool is a reminder of the work you can do. So leaving it in the workspace is a cognitive help for you. And I imagine at this point, the workspaces are pretty personal. At this point in time for Sloan, for example, it's not a shared environment. So leaving your tools there, your personal favorites, is not the problem. It's good to leave them in the space. And we could have a kind of more of an export thing or publish thing. If you want to just take the knowledge objects, the things you've produced without the tools, and export them, you can do that. So at this point, I think we should just do different workspaces, leave all the tools that are inspiring or useful in place, and then not think so much about templates yet, as it's kind of, we don't know what we want to template.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
By template, I don't mean pre-done ones, unless we think of one or two. It's really for the user to save over time.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that perhaps we don't need that functionality right now. It could be that it's enough for just to have workspaces, which mixes both tools, things that affect other things, and knowledge objects themselves that are interactable but not tools. That we freely mix them, leave them in place, and just have an export if we want to have just the content or knowledge object.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And a consequence of what I've been working on with annotations for the last half week has been that it started with Mark working on my thesis and being really annoyed at how he couldn't really comment. And it takes forever to do something and then highlight. That's why we first started with the annotation. So if I see something in red, I know he thinks that's wrong. If I see something in green, he's just agreeing with it. Fine, right? But the second half of that is when I choose to view the document, I should easily be able to see, show me everything that the person who annotated agreed with, and that's it. Right, so you have the view, and that carries over to the workspaces too. Maybe you have a workspace for reviewing when someone has annotated your work. You know, show me all the this in a column, all the that in a column. I want to see how it connects. So you do a basic logical layout. So when you get your feedback, it is useful in such a way, right?
Yeah, and as usual with documents, there is, when you publish, there is this notion of that you remove a lot of the annotations. For some documents, it's like Wikipedia. That's not a good thing. We want to see all the edits and to see the history of it. But for other documents, it's more important to remove the history and the internal working material, as it doesn't reflect your current.
This is so
thing.
brilliant. Thank you, Adam, because when you export, you need to remove those types of annotations, no question. Also, you should be able to have added editors or authors annotations that should stay. Right? That's something that Vint Cerf asked for when we did some experimenting quite a while ago. So to me, it is really, really important that these colors and their semantic meaning is carried across when we're at that stage. Because if you, I can imagine maybe in your environment, instead of carefully selecting a word, you literally have paint that you splat on and it will hit a sentence. You know, you do completely different interaction. Brilliant. Those annotations, to repeat, both the color and the semantic meaning should be attached. So when you go into Fabien's room, Fabian can choose, is it the color or the meaning that matters, right? But when it comes to the published, I think we should maybe use the language and call them notes, because one of the great things would be is the author just highlighting, these are the important sentences. That's simple. And when you choose to read, just like, I want to see the author's view of this, because they did it for ACM hypertext, which is very verbose and boring. I want to see what the author highlighted. So it'll just show the sentences plus maybe some extra text saying, pay attention to this, or here's a secret link or whatever. Yes. There's a lot we can put in there.
Leon, do you have,
Yeah.
do you have
Oh,
any
one more
thoughts on
thing.
this?
I'm sorry, Leon, one more thing. Since I haven't solved the voice guy now. Imagine in a document embedding a lot of stuff for an LLM, right? So you write a document, and instead of just a glossary that is a human glossary, you explicitly embed, this is the extra data that if someone reads this with an LLM, I want the LLM to be aware of.
Mhm.
So let's say we have a 2-page document, but we have 20 pages of metadata. Brilliant. Over to you. I'll promise to mute for a few minutes.
I think it's all these things are really cool use cases. I think it's important to maybe categorize them, whether to save that into the document. So it's like a workspace is a very broad term, but it could be a library wide workspace, maybe with multiple documents from the library. Then I guess this sort of workspace has to be the workspace configuration has to be saved into on an application or library level. But I can also imagine some things you might want to store that inside of the document. Like I think even the last example you gave, Frode. So I think if we basically make a paper maybe this weekend where we basically say like all these use cases, like which should be saved where and which are the most coolest ones, which are maybe the easiest one to implement. Maybe we could even try one. And one more thing, what I wanted to say is that I do think this voice, both telling what the application is about, as well as speaking back to the voice, might be a nice low-hanging fruit, especially in the case of search. For example, yesterday I watched the Star Trek episode, and it was so cool that even in an emergency situation, they could ask, like, please give me all the show me all sentences with the word carbon, or you could even do search carbon, and then the voice would basically respond. There are, let's say, 15 occurrences or 15, and I have a feeling that this kind of interface, which might not even need an LLM, maybe it's just a search keyword, and you basically go to that particular page and then say next to go to the next occurrence. I think something like that is very powerful for people who are not into XR at all. It's sort of showing like, oh wait, yeah, I can see how I don't have to use a keyboard in VR and I can just navigate text. Yes, sorry, Frode, for the long story.
Do not apologize. That was fantastic. Right. 2 things on that, because I think that is very, very important and powerful. I've noticed I actually had a communicator, Star Trek communicator once, got it for my birthday, really beautiful. And it was actually a card signed by Jean-Luc Picard, so that was special.
Wow.
The way they work, right? You touch it and you say the name of the person you want to talk to, and then you say the message. I don't understand why that hasn't been implemented. I mean, with a watch, if it's someone in your favorite, you should be able to say, Emily, can you come here, please? And it then understands it's to Emily, which is defined in my world. So it takes the Emily, can you come here, please? The whole thing as an audio file and sends it. That is the ringtone. So if the person chooses to reply, then it's an open channel. But otherwise, I can't just listen in on her. So talking of low-hanging fruit, that is something we might do in the multi-user environment here, make it super cool. Similarly, I think that one of the problems in the world today is loneliness. I think that, all of us at some point will feel a little cold in the room. And I don't think that voice should be used in cases where hands keyboard, because of the brain, would interfere. But I think that being able to go through documents with a voice and a little bit of feedback adds life to it. So I think you're absolutely right. So, if you come across a word and you want to search for it, you shouldn't have to highlight it. As Adam has said many times, say the word, just say, look up, blah, blah, blah. And the system should understand, look up as a command. It's not, hi, darling, how are you doing? Which would be to your friend. If we have a set of dictionary things like that, I think it would be wonderful, because we do have an expectation. This can be used in a coffee shop, office, or at home, or home office, right? They are very different, and the system should be aware of that. So yes, many thumbs up.
Yeah, I really agree with that. Also, to circle back to the features we're discussing, Adam also said that maybe some of them it's not really the right time for it. Yeah, I do want to speak for Dini a bit. I do remember that for her, it didn't seem like she would really care about space being messy. She cared really a lot about having a lot of space. So I think we should take the workspace idea with a bit of grain of salt, and then maybe already like maybe try to define what is the lowest common denominator of a workspace, like the most simplest way to separate workspaces without much bells and whistles. I think that might already be totally enough. So this sort of like map which I talked about, like which features should be saved into the library metadata and what should be saved on a document level. I maybe a lot of those might not qualify or are better to implement later, and there are probably some of them which are really which can really add some value.
So yes, and I think we need to give our voice a name. We need to give the character a name so we better understand what it means. Because I don't know how much research there has been, not much that I've seen, and it's been a long time since I looked, between voice and ear versus eyes, right? If we can find the sweet spot where we optimize the looking, but without having to, because not being able to touch the laser hand, you've heard the H word I used to describe it, it's not pleasant. But if we manage to find the sweet spot between speaking and looking, it would be absolutely wonderful. So,
I have one more comment on that. It might even save us a lot of implementation if we just first try to get one command working, voice command. Because if you think about workspaces, like it easily triggers a lot of implementation where you have to show all the workspaces. But what if you can just say, Emily, if that's the name of the, like, save this snapshot or save workspace, and go back to the previous workspace, or like you don't even have to develop an interface to show all these things. If you can just, maybe there's a very simple way just with voice commands which saves you from a lot of visualizations of which workspaces are where, because maybe you even remember that, hey, when I was reading this book I made a snapshot. I know. So I will go to this book and I will ask for, go to a previous snapshot or workspace. So it might save so much visual programming.
This is really, really a fantastic call because I have used the headsets now to a frustration enough to feel just what you said. Doing a visual interface in XR is awful. You know, to do it for a PDF style document, not so bad. You can stick things to the document. But for a wider, you know, where's it going to be? In front of you, on your arm? Of course, we need some of them. But I think you're absolutely right. We can solve a lot of problems by making it really clear how the voice interfaces can work. So I completely agree. We should do some testing. You know, like down. You know, when you have a focus of a PDF looking, not actual, but looking document, if you say the word down, it should go down a page. Right? Why faff about while trying to point to the right thing in a 3D space? Similarly, if that was a mistake, you should be able to say undo. Right? So we need not an undo for everything, which is an expensive feature to build, of course, because every state has to be stored. Maybe, but at least it should understand basic things like that for undo. I mean, sorry, I got a user email complaining about AI. God's sake, I'm sorry. That is annoying to get on my watch when I'm talking to you guys. Right, yeah, keep, yes, just very happy, keep going.
No, I'm wondering, maybe we can circle back to Adam, because yeah, he basically started this whole voice fever, or the voice idea. Maybe Adam, you have some comments on voice and maybe the degree of not or to implement stuff. The priorities, I mean.
Yeah, I've thought quite a bit on voice and how it fits in. Some random things from my that I thought about is a voice, a conversation voice that is a thing you can speak to and that speaks to you. It needs to be interruptible. A very important part of a conversation between humans is that we can like interject or give information to the voice or to other people while they speak, so we could kind of steer the so we can steer the conversation a bit, either by gestures or by sounds or verbal agreements and so on, and you could clarify things along the way. That is a feature we want. It doesn't address your question really on this one, because it's quite advanced to do interjectional, but it's something we really want going forward in voice interfaces. Interruptible conversational and interruptible voice interfaces. In general, for where voice shines as a user interface is for things not present in the room. The things present in the room, of course, can be made interactable by the regular user interfaces. I'm not saying that voice can't shine here either, but where voice really shines is for things that are not present. So fetching documents, searching fetching is a very good use case. Instead of looking into folders or spaces to fetch that one workspace or that one image or document that you want, doing voice search for it and presenting that as a visual thing, the result can be presented visually as well. So I'm all for multimodal, and especially in XR, we have the opportunity to save multiple results. Whenever you search, you can have a small search bubble or object placed in space representing that search that you could either build upon, kind of refine that search, or you can keep it there, and when you're done you throw it away, or it automatically disappears, goes into the trash bin after a while. But the ability to keep past results is very important, I think. and when you pick up Siri have kind of amnesia. If you talk to Siri or the voice assistants, if you do the next query, it's hard to get back to your previous query. They are lost in time. And it's a bit similar to the undo function. The state you had a moment ago is also lost in time. It's not visualized, of course, or often it's not. So that's also a good place for voice to search, like in the search the past as well. So that's some random thoughts on voice interaction, but it's very good for fetching things not present.
It's a good point.
I strongly agree, especially if it's visually augmented. So you say, say something, open that thing I saw on Wednesday and get a list of things on Wednesday. And then it's because you've now limited the vocabulary, you can speak the thing there. And also, you talked about things in the room. So if you say something and it doesn't know what you're talking about, it can ask you, what are you talking about? And then you can point to it. Right, yeah, absolutely. Guys, just for fun, can we spend a minute thinking of a name for this assistant?
A smart person, like in history, historical smart person. Hamlet.
Oh my God, are you kidding? You know why that's extremely relevant, right? How much do you know about Doug Engelbart's work? In his 1962 paper, the theoretical system he developed was called H-LAM/T, something learning, and it was an acronym. And Ted Nelson said, how do you pronounce that? And he said, I don't know, I've never said it out loud, I've only written it. So Ted said, how about Hamlet?
Interesting.
That's quite fun. Sound
So, yeah.
wise, it's a challenge because you shouldn't have to say the name every time like a Siri type thing, right? But still, when you do, this next sound will most likely be a command. So where you have your mouth matters.
There are a few different approaches here, I think. Having something more artificial or stupid as a representation of it could be better. If you had an owl or a dog or something you talk to, an avatar of a dog, you will be more understanding when it fetches the wrong thing. So it signals kind of not fully human. If we have a human representation, it may be disappointing to speak to it when it's not human in its
that's a very good point.
In its functionality. So if the dog fetches the wrong document, I'm fine with that. I know it's a kind of a dog representation. Or if the clippy character from Word in the 90s fetches the wrong thing, I understand it. So that could be a thing for now, but on the other hand, if we have a kind of the voice we heard a moment ago, the female voice, would it be strange to call that voice Clippy or Dog or Hamlet? Well, she can be a Hamlet, of course.
I put in a link in the chat to a list of names of robots in history.
If you think about it, the metaverse or AGI, they all suffer from this problem. They present themselves as something, next level, smart, amazing, impressive. But yeah, it's always very awkward when things don't work as sort of promised, or when they're not that smart or not that immersive. So yeah, it's a smart point to make.
On the other hand, if we pick something like Hamlet or pick a ghost or something that is a bit disconnected from us, a historical, maybe a bit mythological as well, even if human-like, it will also
Yeah.
perhaps fulfill the same thing that Hamlet doesn't understand our modern PDFs very well. So, so Hamlet fetches the wrong thing now and then. So we could get away with that. But Hamlet, even though rhyming or speaking on verse, that system will fetch the wrong PDF.
By the way, a small observation is I also noticed that voice recognition has actually two dimensions. It has the, like Freud said, the conversational dimension these days. But what I also notice with expert interfaces, they're usually command based because it's basically saves time. And for people who use text a lot, having a conversational interface can be incredibly annoying. So I guess we have to keep both in mind. Basically, the command-based simple version and the perhaps more. I think in shows like Star Trek, they basically always get the command-based. Is that's the default, and if they want to switch to conversational, they say something like, "Yeah, please speculate," and then the computer switches into conversational mode. Maybe we need to keep these things in mind, that conversational only might be a bit childish to some very experienced people. They get a bit tired of such
but I wonder how much of that is due to the fact that command-based voice interfaces have been fire and forget. You're seldom allowed to refine the commands or change them or see previews. So I think there is a hybrid where you build up the command slowly and you see previews as much as you can along the way. So you could actually have a good build a complex thing that where you could start without knowing fully what you want to do from the start, that you get informed during the way, and finally it lands in a command that reflects what you actually mean. So
that's
is another.
I'm suddenly envisioning something I've never seen before, but many times with voice recognition, when you speak, you see being typed what they think you're talking about. But I've never seen a system where you basically speak and then you will see a command being formed on the fly, so that you're also learning what would be the short command of the story you're telling.
Yeah,
I've never seen something like that. I'm not saying that we should implement it, but I'm just saying that it triggers these kind of.
And that's why I'm saying it may not be for Sloan, but it will certainly be the future of interaction and partly about the future of text, and it's even more universal than just VR AR. It's everywhere, as I said, ambient computing or computer regular phones and computers will have that, and the tech is good enough, but we need UI for it, really good voice voice interfaces that are capturing what we want to have.
The voice in the Vision Pro is absolutely phenomenal. Siri doesn't make mistakes on that. So if we have access to that through WebXR, it really helps us a lot.
Yes, we do, and if we have we can try it out in Safari. Everyone who has access to Safari, it works there. So you could the web speech API, the voice recognition part of it. So we have the opportunity to do everything that starts with a with a magic keyword. For us could be a search or a command if we want to. We just strip that off the we strip the magic keyword off the phrase and we use the rest for search, for example. So that's one thing I want to perhaps play with this weekend, to do a small speakable prototype speech interface. That could be one thing to play with for me.
So here's a funny thing. When I worked on a little startup in the Valley many years ago, this was in the Skype days. My partner, she was in California, I was in the UK. On a work day, whatever we defined it as, because of the time difference, we let Skype run all day. So even if we talked to someone else, we could hear it. It was very useful. Imagine if we built an app, now I'm outside of Sloan for a second, that does exactly that, but based on Star Trek principles. So imagine that we define ourselves as an active group. We all have an app on our devices. So if I say, Adam, can you have a look at this? It then, little note on the screen says, you know, sending message to Adam in case I need to cancel. It was a mistake, right? Then that audio goes to you and you can choose to respond to it or not. What an incredible team building, connecting thing that might be. Because you may choose to have it speak, play that, or you may be in quiet mode where it's just text, for instance. That was fun. Anyway, Leon, back to reality, please.
Yeah, I have an audit at 11 o'clock, so I have to jump.
Oh,
But it's really interesting. I would also be interested to look a bit into like even a simple magic word as a starting point to try it out.
Yeah.
Because if you have that, then every experiment is so easy to tinker with.
Yep. And Leon, we talked about that briefly on the call. I don't know with which people, but you can also imagine that we have an LLM taking that speech recognition and filling in the form, so to say, of a command.
Yeah.
So now my programmer brain thinks of the terminal commands where you have lots of either slashes or the extra sub commands that you need to fill in. In a similar way, the LLM can do the boring fill in the form work for you for a command that is more refined or complex. So you don't have to do it yourself. So we can kind of pre-fill in the form for you, and you just say okay to that form, and or continue to fill in the form with your commands. You can do it conversationally, but it's very structured in a way. For some sort of, especially let's say for a search, where you want to search both a keyword and a time range, for example, that would be an example of I want documents on spatial hypertext. And then you remember that it should be pre-90s, the first occurring, or pre-2000, and you add that as a second kind of subcommand or another thing that you enter into that form, search form, and you build a search with your voice that is slightly conversational, slightly.
Yeah, there would be your hybrid interface by just adding the LLM as a man in the middle.
Yeah,
that's really cool. Yeah,
will probably be a bit slow for the moment, but it's still an interesting way to see. It will perhaps even still be quicker than launching some sort of search form, filling it in. That could easily take 10 or 15 seconds, even in good interfaces nowadays. So saying it in voice and letting the LLM process it for 5 seconds could be quicker anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, go to your audit, but we will have the opportunity. When are you coming then? Which time are you coming? Friday?
I think on the 29th. So that is
Thursday.
No, sorry,
No.
sorry, 31, 31, yeah, 31
So
on Friday.
Friday. Ah, nice.
Can you
All right,
text me your details again, please, Leon, or email or whatever?
I will.
Oh no, I got it here. Okay, see you later. See you at 4 today if you can.
Okay, thanks. Cheers, everybody.
Just gonna put that in the calendar. It wasn't there. Oh yeah, it was there. So Fabian and Leon are coming almost simultaneously, so that's going to be a logistical challenge. Right.
A different.
Very useful chat so far. I think Fabian may join us. Let me just check.
Yeah, so the voice interface may be a bit not tangential, but tangential in the sense that it's different from the other Sloan things that we discussed so far. We of course mentioned voice, but we haven't looked into it in detail. So it could be one of the interesting prototypes to let people understand what it could be for. As I think of voice as a very important part of XR, but a bit underexplored or undershown, at least as we think about visuals and perhaps gestures when we say XR, a bit less about the voice and audio part. And I'm not saying that I don't like to speak to my computer all the time. I want to do things with my hands with the computer, but I would certainly have the opportunity to let it fetch things for me.
The thing is, when you're in XR, unless you have a controller or keyboard, your hands are cut off. You know, the whole laser pointing thing, I think there is, you know, we're all nerds in this group, but there are different kinds of nerds. I think there's the nerd who cares about the capability and the nerds who cares about how you can use the capability. That, you know, some of these, you know, I do very strongly see voice as being more relevant here than on a traditional computer. You know, reaching across with my mouse takes no time. Trying to get a laser pointer working takes time.
Yep. And for our use case, as we work with text, it has a nice interaction with voice, and there is a tighter connection than other perhaps musical interfaces or other kind of professional interfaces or architecture may at least in our use case with the documents and text. I think voice is closer to the source material, a bit closer as well. Yeah. So do you have any specific ideas for this weekend? Things that you personally want to explore, that you feel fun things, or
For this weekend, the only thing I'm interested in is our dinners and lunches.
yeah, I'm with you there.
So on Sunday, I've invited 2 other friends to join us for kind of an early dinner. They're in our field. I have not invited someone outside of the community. These are people you will have met before, even if slightly. I think Bjorn is coming from the north of Norway.
Oh,
A ridiculously intelligent guy who's worked on all kinds of things. Not a super text guy, but he's enthusiastic about what we do.
yep.
So no, I have absolutely no agenda work-wise for the weekend because yeah, I mean it really we're all in a sense control freaks because we all care passionately about these types of things. So I don't want to get in a situation where we're like, no, but we should do this, because trust me, that's a large part of my personality. I'd much rather hear you say, no, for the next hour or two, I'm going to take the headset. Why don't you go and do something else? I'm going to be at the bottom of the garden. Bye bye. To me, that will be success.
Yeah, and I'm 100% sure that we can just play by ear here and find tons of interesting things to explore that are both relevant and super interesting and pioneering in some sense.
Yeah, and also Andrea couldn't make it this weekend. I did invite her a little bit late, but there are some people in our community who could come over later in the summer, so we might very
Mm.
well see if we do a second one. And
Mm.
maybe the second one we do it half organized, half easygoing. I don't know. Yeah, no, it's very exciting, and this voice aspect of it really intrigues me now because I'm beginning to see how it fits with text rather than competes with text.
Yeah, exactly. It should be integrated, and I think too many people and also too many implementations have been no, instead of having your keyboard or cursor, you get voice, and you also get that crappy voice interface that misunderstands you 1/3 of the time, and then you do commands that you really hate.
I mean,
But now we have a better hit ratio, and we could have it, especially in XR, we can have it more visualized, more previewed, so less of a hassle that it gets it wrong when it gets it wrong. So we have better opportunities to have it integrated in a here and there.
so one thing that's kind of exciting is the early voice systems were based on having limited vocabularies, which is very powerful. So I'm thinking if we develop, or even if you develop, a system whereby what is shown on the screen in XR is made known to the voice, right?
Mm.
So for instance, you might have something as simple as, oh, follow that link, right?
Yep.
And it'll follow the first link on the page unless you say follow the second link.
Mm.
Even, oh, who would that cited document? Because of like to me, programming or interactions basically data plus command, right? So data plus command plus metadata equals opportunity.
Yep. So there will be endless opportunities for work there, of course. Lots of things to think about. But I remember for just with the prototype where Mark and I do with the hypertext thing, just searching all fields, even the hidden fields, and presenting those as results was important. Searching abstracts, searching for when you had it full text, searching all the fields with the key. So having more information available behind the scenes than what you see is also very important here. Then, of course, there will be challenges of, like you said, with the link example, to identify things when there are multiples to clearly indicate for the system which one you refer to. That is a challenge, but it's well worth. It's a good challenge. So
Yeah, it's getting.
So do we think Fabian will join
Yes,
us?
he's a few minutes away. He said he texted.
Okay. Oh, good. Also this Friday, I'm having my birthday. I've noticed I ran away from my family, and so it happened to be my birthday. So I need to take you out to a dinner Friday evening or something. We need to.
I'm gonna have to pause. I'm gonna have to pause the recording for a minute.
Oh.
Meeting is being recorded.
Hello.
Hello.
All good?
Yeah, we've just been talking a little bit about the weekend, and we've decided on a few things. Friday's going to be dinner in town, Singapore restaurants. We're going to try to find some immersive things. So if there's anything you want to put on the agenda, just please do.
Like immersive dinner? What do you mean?
Oh, no.
Actually, I searched for immersive London, and there was one thing. I think you went to kind of a prison. You got to the orange prison suits, and you sat in cells drinking beer. So there was a prison setting. So half immersive, but maybe not the kind of immersive we were referring to.
Can
Yeah,
get
that
very
sounds-
immersive too, but risky.
Yeah, no, yeah. So Friday dinner in Soho, Singaporean, Chinese, Asian. The other thing's still open. We'll have a dinner here early Sunday, and yeah. Other than that, yeah, we're looking into more digitally immersive and things like that. There's some things we've seen ads on the tube, so see what people want. I'll post it.
There was also the discussion potentially with Orin or Odin for the interaction design. Remember, I suggested he would make a presentation, but then because he's based in London, we can meet him directly.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking at the calendar here, you arrive 12 o'clock St. Pancras. Leon arrives Gatwick at 1. So I think it may be best if we pick him up by car and you tube or train to Wimbledon.
Yeah.
Because he's further away or something. But that means that from after 2, 3 o'clock on Friday, we are free to meet him.
I think we said Saturday 3 p.m. at the Tate Modern was the last suggestion, which he accepted.
Okay. Can you just write his name again in the chat so I don't get it wrong?
Yes.
That's a very good place for us to be. Adam, that sounds like fun too, right? After that, we can do walking.
Yeah, that's perfect. It's interesting. I followed him before he was interested in XR. I have lots of his old two-dimensional prototypes, gestural interface kind of things, and the animations that I've saved down to my computer 5 years ago and so on. So it's interesting that he now stepped into XR, which is even better for the things he built then. It's even a better fit.
Fabian, do you know where he's from?
I do not.
Okay, because whichever country it is, I just politically want to make sure I don't say the wrong thing, because I do work with Russians. It's not their fault. Their government is absolute shit. But at the same time, I have Ukrainian family, so you know, his name could be either or, and yeah, it's all good. Just don't want to say something stupid.
We will say stupid things, but we'll be cautious on that topic.
Yes, on such topics. Right. So, Fabian, just to fill you in a bit, we've gone through a few things. Leon was here earlier. One of them is we are really excited about voice interfaces in XR now. Obviously, Adam's been pushing for quite a while. Voice interfaces that are augmented with text rather than competing with, which is a very important thing, obviously. We've also looked at the language of what this thing we're building is. So I had a nice meeting with Dini on Friday where Annotation is crucial. If you cannot annotate a document in academic, you kind of can't read it, right? Because everything has to be in your head. So we have to think about that. So we talked about semantic annotation, where you go through a document, and if you're reading it for yourself, you will highlight this is interesting or this is bullshit, that kind of stuff. If you're reading it for someone who wants that feedback, you'll do it differently, like this is grammatically wrong, you know, what's happening here? You want to put things without having to write it. So you just do different colors that mean things. That's where the conversation started. So to be able to save this in a way that can be used by all the different systems we are developing. So we open up from, you know, something that was done annotation wise in Adam's world, in your world, your system should know that the user said bullshit or whatever it might be, right? So in order to get the language, which has been a bit contentious for a while, done, we've been working on a script, which the notion is that you have some kind of a persona in the space speaking to you when you get in there. And
when you say we, have you? Is it we, the royal Frodo, or royal we, or have you and Dini that script itself? I mean,
the script, yeah, no, that's a very fair point. The script is something I've been working on, but it is Yeah, but it is something that I've been working on based on what I've learned talking primarily to you and then somewhat to Dini. So I've been just doing that. And the script, it's really important that I'm not saying we should actually build it. I'm just saying I think I will hopefully have it presentable by our afternoon meeting today. The idea is that if you want to make a product, ideally, to me, you make the advertising first. If you can't make an ad that really presents it, you don't know what you're doing. After that, it should be either a walkthrough or a user guide. So it's just that kind of thinking. So, you know, so let's say you put in the headset and you go into the space and you hear,
We're starting here in the library.
right? How cool is that? That's a fake voice, okay?
You are now in what we call the reading room.
Right. So the whole idea is just explaining to the person where you are. And the only language, Fabian, that you need to know that I think we've agreed on is the place where you have documents you aren't reading yet. We still call it a library. When you choose to read a document or more, but you're focused kind of at one at a time, we call that a reading room, which does not discount having the library in your environment. It's still there. The things that are all over the place, we just call it elements. And if you save a set of this, let's say something is optimized for a timeline or something is optimized for having George Washington on the wall as a keyword, whatever it might be, we say that saving a workspace. I think that's it.
Makes sense to me. One quick clarification, I guess, on the initial point about annotation and interoperability. The format of the JSON exchanged with Andrew a couple of days or weeks ago even. It does not support annotation because there was no annotation, but basically if you have an element, I guess, according to the vocabulary you explicited, that could be an annotation, and same sharing like coordinates, that would be enough to at least start. We can keep on adding properties, let's say rotation, scale, corners, whatever. But the very basic of content with a position is sufficient to have objects like a document or annotations. That seems straightforward.
Yeah, on that, I think even more basic or more important to preserve here is that kind of original link to the source material. So if you do an annotation, knowing which either position in a document or word or phrase or page or document as a whole to preserve that. I've been saying that the coordinates are nice to preserve, but the most important part is to preserve its relation with the source material. As our systems, I may lay out them automatically in some sort of reflowed way, for example, and you may have it positionally in a very strict way, for example, compared to the original material. So there the positions are not that important. The important part is that its relationship with the source material is is preserved, of course. I'm not saying that we should throw away anything, but the compatibility may more be in that an annotation has a semantic meaning, that it has a semantic or has a good connection to its source.
Yeah, just to build on this, my suggestion about having a position is the raw naive one, for example, absolute position in space. But it's indeed it's indeed important to say that's the worst case scenario, kind of. That's the worst way that you can. It's still going to work, but indeed you must have provenance. You know what are you actually referring to. Ideally, you let the user, for example, move the annotation in space, but it maintains a link to the document or part of document being annotated. So yeah, that definitely be better.
Yeah, and to argue against myself, under in favor of positions. There are situations where let's say you do 3 voice notes or 3 notes that you write down something yourself, 3 notes that you created. And if you put them close together, you may not know the relationship yet or what the whole thing is, but it's important that they are still grouped together, and then it's important to preserve the locations quite precisely, because you then preserve some sort of connection between them, even though it's not refined yet or expressed yet. That may emerge later what that kind of grouping is. Over.
And this is something we'll talk about more, I guess, today in our normal meeting. Not sure how long that'll go on, but I'm glad we're having this today. And I'm very grateful that you guys are talking about the JSON issues, because this needs to be as object-oriented as possible. You know, I would ideally, and I'm sure you completely agree, like it so that almost anybody can come in and change almost any part of this experience. So yeah, nice to listen to. Additionally, Fabian, we've been having some fun thinking about a name for the voice if you need a voice prompt to start it. So first of all, I suggested on Friday to Dini that we call the whole system Augment. And she didn't have a huge, I saw that. So, you know, it would be nice to have a name for the system that makes some kind of historical sense. But in terms of the voice prompts, most of the time you shouldn't need a voice prompt in this environment. But when you do, yeah, do you have any thoughts?
I think it's interesting. I don't like it, to be honest. Everything that sounds too humane and it's not, I don't like it. That's my knee-jerk reaction. But I think still, in terms of accessibility, it's positive. So I think as long as it's framed in terms of not bringing magical powers to whatever, but rather, and not like tricking the user into believing there is more intelligence than there actually is, and it's for accessibility, I'm happy with that. And so I would frame it this way. And in terms of naming or convention, it's I'm more into the let's try and see if it makes sense. So as long as it's a name that's again not tricking the person into expectations, but it's still relevant. So maybe a play on word on augment and augmenta or something that is, let's say, sound name-ish without losing the function behind it, I'm fine. But I don't have a strong position on this, except that I'm happy to with whatever help accessibility. And again, it's a kind of an egoistic viewpoint. For example, I'll bring my headset to go through the La Manche, I forgot even the name in English, but to the UK by the tunnel, and I will probably work and or play with the headset. And it's not the same context when I use it while traveling and at home. And whatever have accessibility feature will help in such context. So again, that's kind of my framing of this kind of discussions.
That's what Adam said.
Yep, I had a similar on the not pretending to be human. I think I suggested that we use whatever like it's better to be a clippy or a dog or an owl or something that is not very intelligent, not to well, or a robot or something, a spirit, something. When it fetches the wrong documents for you, you won't get that angry at your clippy or a llama character or whatever. So it doesn't pretend to be intelligent in any way.
Yeah, I fully endorse that sentiment for sure. So
onboarding is different when it's human writing the script, and it's even a synthetic voice is fine with me then, as it's written by a human, and its function is to inform the user of functionality on what you can do, and perhaps do a bit of a warmer welcome than having text everywhere on screen.
That's really interesting. I agree. And I think the transition will be interesting too. I could imagine a human-like character saying, hello, I am blah, blah. I represent the future tech community. Hope you will enjoy this. Here's how you use it. And at the end of it said, either pretend that I am the person speaking. I'm now going to be living on your wrist as a little spare. Please excuse the fact that I will have a smaller brain, or this android will now take over, or whatever. Yes, so the transition, to make it explicitly clear to the user, the voice interaction is with a simple system. Yes, very.
It's interesting, the whole onboarding part with, I played Tears of Kingdom, the Zelda game, the latest from last year or so, with my kids yesterday. We haven't tried it yet. I bought it earlier, but we just tried it now. And the onboarding in many computer games traditionally you had tutorial sections that are very divisive in the community, if you like them or not. If you want to go through the training grounds, or if you want to go into a light, easy section or beginner section and try it out live, so to say, in the real virtual environment, the same environment that you will meet later on, but perhaps a bit easier or simpler. And I'm also one of those persons who don't like tutorials, at least not long tutorials. They need to be very short for me. I want to play around and then get instructions along the way or find out myself. So I think, and as I've understood it, many people are like that. They don't want to go through long tutorials. So the trend seemed to be that you intersperse or have voices and have, like, you put it here and there, and it's very done with a light touch. You're not forced to do things, but they are. The tutorials are kind of placed in the starting environment somewhere, and you can try them when you want to, instead of being forced to go through trainings. Yeah, over.
I mean, first, can you clarify which game you mentioned, because I didn't get the name?
Zelda, Tears
okay.
of Kingdom.
Yeah.
The latest since the Breath of the Wild was the first one. Tears of Kingdom is I play it on Switch. It's only available there, and it's very sandboxy nowadays. So you can combine many things with many things. So it has progressed. It's interesting in that sense.
Thank you. I think indeed a lot of, if I take a silly example, it's as if you get a new TV and you get the remote, and the remote has 50 buttons. And the tutorial is like, this button does this button does this. After the fourth button, you're like, I need to use it and then come back and then give me the advanced function, like changing the color scheme and whatnot. But like memorizing 50 kind of combos and whatnot, the only person who would actually benefit from it would be an already expert, and like, okay, I usually already know all this, so it confirms it all, or this is like a slight subtlety. But otherwise, like flooding the users, even if the tutorial is like brilliant, even if it's really gorgeous, and then you are back to the open world, and then you're like, how many of those possibilities should I use right now? And I believe the more gradual it is, but within a context, like you learn a move, you do the thing, and then I think a lot of games, they do this. For example, they introduce, let's say, enemies or challenge or puzzles that only need as kind of like the minimum requirement to solve that challenge, that basic movement you learned. And then you do it 2 or 3 times, and then you move to like another challenge that if you haven't paid attention, they can give you the hint. But if you somehow remember it all, but not, you solve it with this other kind of, let's say, button combo capacity you have. But if it's like all in your face, like I just started Elden Ring last week. It's hard. I like it. I think it's a little bit like sadomasochistic kind of game, but I guess I like it. I'm not sure yet. And the tutorial is well done and terrible, because it's well done in the sense that it's using kind of the geometry of the level. So if you already know it, you skip it, you don't even notice it. If you want to go, you go through. But then they teach you not everything, but like I would say 10 kind of movements. And I've done that, and I was like, yeah, it's cool. And then I'm back in an open world. I'm like, how the fuck did I do that thing? And I'm so lost. So then I now redo everything bit by bit, and I'm getting it. But I think it's a good example in terms of spatial design, and terrible example in terms of, again, I think the tutorial is for people who played this kind of games, like the 4 or 5 before it.
Yeah.
They confirm it, they know it, they confirm, and then for newcomers, like you're screwed. Like, good luck.
So it's good spatial design, but bad temporal design in that it comes at the wrong times, perhaps. Right.
Yeah. So one of the things, Fabian, we talked about earlier was in NLS Augment, when you're writing a command, you can always hit the question mark key, and it'll show you all the possible things you can do next. So there's two things about that regarding this lower hand. Yeah. One is we also talked about it would be useful if the AI voice has access to what is on the screen. So first of all, if you say open the link, it'll know it's the one single link that's visible. Otherwise, it'll have to ask you. It won't be like you have to select. Because to me, the worst thing about XR is selecting. It's awful. Fair enough. Voice may alleviate that in many sentences. Like instead of selecting the word elephant, you just say look up elephant, for instance. And in terms of the teaching thing you're talking about, I would love it if it could, if the user can say something like, what can I say right now? If the voice assistant knows what's on screen, they could then ask a follow-up question. Do you mean about what you can see or about how you can get other information, for example? Right? And then it could actually show you a list. The whole idea of speaking and getting reply, not only verbally, but also visually, I think is really compelling. Like the thing Adam was talking about, searches, like show me everything related to this that I did last Wednesday. And instead of speaking a long list, it shows you. But now the vocabulary is constrained because you'll pick the second one from top, or you'll say the title of it, or whatever it might be. So it is really, really important, if we're going to have a voice part of this, to have a voice where the voice listens and pays attention, just like with a human, right? And we do not want to do old Siri. Apparently Siri in a week will be much more powerful, but yeah, it's fascinating. And also, hang on a second, I just realized, what you guys are talking about with progressive disclosure to teach you what the commands and systems are, we should probably do that about reading a document as well, or reading a proceedings. You should be able to learn the proceedings in a sequenced manner also, right? Like something as simple as you're looking at the whole proceeding. Show me only papers that are by new authors, as in they haven't been in ACM before. That should be reasonable, right? So you filter with this. Anyway, lots of fun stuff.
Little warning in terms of conversational agent. What I consider myself in cases like this a power user. Like if I believe in the software, I want to use it. Let's say start with the basics or the foundation. But if I'm really interested in it, I'm going to potentially go all the way to the guts of the software, even the code of the software itself. And that means I need to know its capabilities, and conversational agents don't give me this. Like hit or miss. Either I ask a question and then I get the answer and boom, I move on and it's cool. But if I don't, I have no idea if it's within the scope of what it is capable of or not. So for this, in terms of exploring, I mean, like as an onboarding, doing it like gradual disclosure is perfectly fine. It though cannot be the only way for me. Like I need to have a way to, okay, give me, even if it's a list that is barely readable, at least I can see, okay, is it 1 item, 50 items, 100 items? Is it composable or not? And I think conversational only, I don't see how it could give me this if it.
Yeah, we covered Leon when Leon was here. We covered one aspect of this is that conversational interfaces have been, especially when it comes to more command-based things, they have been very fire and forget. have almost never been able to refine your query along the way. If there is something you want to search, kind of do a power search, for example. So I would really have, I would like to have a conversational interface where you can refine, fill in the, let the LLM or something interpret it, fill in the forms, refine the form for a command or for a search along the way, a kind of a power user search that is visualized, it's precise in the resulting command is precise, but the way of getting there is conversational and incremental as well. So it's not fire and forget, and the result is precise. And we haven't had that really. I haven't seen systems like that, at least where you could, with search, refine precise commands. It's either very conversational and interpreted, or very, very strict and fire forget, single command, single action. So we have the opportunity to do a hybrid that is a bit more power user friendly.
Yeah. For fun, shall we go through a few potential names? Not that we're going to settle on it now. Shall I read what we did earlier, Fabian, or do you have some?
I think we are. Do you mean the names for the prototype and for the voice?
I'm thinking the name of the voice, because it's a very fascinating.
I think we are exactly the wrong crowd for this. You need the kind of creative. Well, I'm creative, but I'm not really a marketing person, or I'm more, as Fabian said, more interested in the functionality. So I'd rather take a half an hour and discuss power user features or interesting interfaces than the marketing naming of things. Even though I agree with the naming is important.
So let's do the game, Adam. Frode will say a name, and then we will say yes.
Okay, right. We've written a lot, but I just realized I really think maybe the voice interface should be a name that is 2 letters long, DV, as I've just put in the chat, for 2 reasons.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. I won. Well, let me see if you agree with the rationale behind it. Number 1 is it looks non-human, right? So it's like R2D2, which fulfills the criteria of not trying to be too human. We can actually just say it's an acronym for digital voice. Also, it has the way it would pronounced would be Dave. So that would be an allusion to Dave in Space Odyssey. And personally, I'd like to honor Dave Millard. So if we just say, hi, I'm DV, pronounced Dave, that might be a fun thing. Anyway, moving on to power stuff.
I asked Leon about what he is currently most interested in doing. So it would be fun to hear you, Fabian, either for Sloan or for the weekend or whatever. What's kind of is there a special itch that you want to scratch, or something you want to explore? So it's nice to see the overlap and see. Well, I don't want to say the synergy word, but now I've said it. The S word.
How marketing of you. So practically speaking, I think the most interesting part for me, which won't really actually answer your question, no help, but the perspective I have is I don't go there to do what I could do on my own at home. So it's indeed specifically the intersection of what we're able to do, like what we can discuss or build even together. That's interesting for me on the weekend. Like my own interest, let's say, at the moment, I mean, honestly, changed daily. There are so many cool things to build and try. So I have like zero worry about what we can do and what we can build. That will be exciting. Like inspectability or introspection of programming in XR, having the virtual body where you can attach shortcuts and snippets, gesture management. I mean, there are so many things So I'm like, it's more of a plethora of things to explore, and there are, that I, at least as far as I know, that are unexplored things. They're not just cool or interesting. It's not like any kind of XOR stuff you show up and like, oh, it's been done before. So I'm super chill with like improvisation, precisely because I'm confident there are so many things to explore. Now, if you push me and say, okay, but let's say you need to make a choice of the one thing you must explore or push for this weekend, it would definitely not be rendering. It would definitely not be how to do so efficiently, because I'm betting that can be sold, and probably not by me also, to be honest. So what would it be? Maybe, I guess, being more daring about like the design philosophy I mentioned to both of you, actually, about facilitating more introspection and not hiding the scaffolding, how things are done. I guess I talk about it, but I'm not 100% coherent about it. That, for example, some of the functions I used, they can be shown, but I don't show them. And ideally, they should be shown and editable in XOR directly. Let's say even the basic functions of assigning a behavior, let's say dropping the shortcut on the wrist, for example, that works, cool. If you look at the code source, you can see how it's done, not complicated, cool. But if you're in XOR and you say, oh, when I do this, I want this to happen on both wrists, you basically have to either remove the headset or go on a like shell page and whatnot. But ideally, you would see, I don't know, you would like have a special mode where you circle or you lasso around or you point at the object, let's say the wrist shortcut drop in box, and then it show next to it a console with the code that's attached to it right now. So again, more introspection, and the goal of introspection then is to say, oh, I don't want this behavior, I want another better behavior for my usage right now. So I guess that's what I would want to push for.
And that is what made, for example, HTML so very interesting, in that we had to inspect source, and that made a whole generation of web page creators that were not like super coded, but some of them became coders. They inspected a few JavaScript snippets in order to get to fun pop-up windows or colorful interactions or jumping buttons or whatever, and then that expanded. And certainly for XOR, right now I feel a bit frustrated about the whole kind of going away to Blender in WebXR, that so much is produced in 3D software that is kind of published first. Of course, you can get a tighter cycle between Blender and an XR environment and go back and forth, but it's quite complicated and also very, yeah. I want to have more objects that are created in XR, WebXR, and persisted in like our workspaces. I really want them to be that almost all functionality can be created or done inside WebXR. It's not just a display mechanism for generated somewhere else, but also that it's at least two-way there.
A quick anecdote, that I'm part of that generation, or the kind of people that indeed were, I guess, one of the motivation for me to be working on the web. There is, of course, the delivery mechanism, like boom, you share a link and even your fridge can check it, which is amazing. And in terms of like instant, how do you say? Not just deliverability is not just to reach a broad audience and a large set of devices. It's also like I build a thing and then I try it on my devices now, like literally now, or a couple of milliseconds for the network to catch up, but it's imperceptible. Let's say now, but indeed the short source, the being able to go through it, it's super empowering for learners. It's like you don't have to know what a web page is, but if you look at it, and it's like you can open it up, and I don't think there are more powerful ways for people to learn. Of course, you can just rebuild from scratch and define a new language and a browser and everything. That would definitely be a way to learn, but you won't necessarily learn the same thing, and definitely not something compatible. So I think indeed it's I can definitely relate to that because I've went through it, and I hope in terms of I mean in general, philosophically speaking, I guess I think it's important, like it's no black box, but I want to say even more so in the state of XR, anything innovative that is new, we're expert, and yet we don't really know what we're doing. So it's not like a kind of, oh, I want to be humble. Is we, like I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, there are so many things to explore. Like that's so vast and exciting, but at the same time, like, oh, what are we? How do we do this? And I think if we just juggle with black box, sending black boxes to each other, we're going to manage, but it's it's dumb. Like it's very inefficient. So I think that's, it sounds to me like that's the right way to explore the unknown, showing the source.
And probably there exist other halfway points to code, like the visual coding languages that are not just Scratch-like for kids, but also the things that we see in 3D graphics program, like Node-based, both in sound and that are accessible to a wider range of audience. And they have their problems, of course, in that when they get big, they can be just as manageable as code and hard to inspect and understand. But there is something very interesting about those code blocks that defines what they can be attached to, the inputs, outputs, and I see that at some point we would like to have something in a like WebXR environment that you can do some sort of interactions, like attaching to a wrist, that something is attachable to another object, that it's movable, that it's expandable, that it's copyable, that they have different properties that are almost that could be expressed in a visual language. And if you really want to look behind inside the under the hood, or not just under the hood, but if you do want to take apart the engine and see how it's done in code, you can do so as well, but at least open the hood and change and fix things a bit. That will be wonderful to have at some point, and I think software is moving there slowly, in like with blenders and so on. So I hope we can get there with the WebXR as well. A-frame is perhaps one halfway point there as well, but it's a bit more codey. Yeah. Did we lose Frode to lunch? Or?
I am fully here. I'm just not, I'm just not ruining by munching, but I'm listening very intently.
Bon appétit. I think also, so I'll have actually to go relatively soon, but
yeah, me too.
I was at maybe I even mentioned this during the last Future of Text discussion, but I was at the research university linked to a hospital, to ER, a couple of days ago, and I was advocating for them for open source, and they work with emerging technology like XR, including actually XR rather, and I was insisting with them, again, not because of my old philosophical position, but because or rather because they want to innovate, it's a bit like XR. We don't know what we're doing, and yet we're experts, so we need to explore. And they are, how do you say, holders of knowledge, I guess. So in terms of the Sloan project, it's to support academic work. And whatever affordances can be given to academics without supposing them to even do Scratch, without even supposing them to do any coding, if there can be ways for them, for example, to get a programmer more easily. Like they don't need to learn the ins and out of Unity, or they reach a black box they can't use, and then they are at the mercy of, let's say, Apple's API on what can or can't be done. I think it's very limiting. Whereas if there are again ways for it to be both open source and inspectable, scrutable, to have some ways to see the source, I think it gives academics themselves who might have ideas, like for example, maybe Dini will have a crazy idea on a Saturday morning at 3 a.m. and maybe Andrew would not be available, but she can poke at it. And when I say poke, I don't mean like formally, professionally program it. Maybe she can, maybe she can't, but at least she can dare to consider trying and look at it. And then eventually, I think in terms of being able to push the discussions and maybe even long-term, again, poke at different places, and sometimes it will work. I think it's quite empowering. So I think it's not like a theoretical discussion about the power of programming or whatnot. It's like for academics who want to explore XR as a way to eventually do research better, I think it's a good onboarding, or a good way to dare tinker. Even if
we
it's
also
just
have,
like comment in the code, I think that's already like super cool step.
yeah, and we also have the, in every office and in every family, perhaps, or not every, but many, we have the power user, who's kind of the informal IT person who perhaps sets up an Excel sheet with some formulas. People fill in the numbers or text, but the formulas are made by that power user, that expert. And in the family, we have someone who sets out the networking or something that is complicated technology-wise, or a bit more complicated, and we need to empower them so they can empower their friends and family and colleagues as well. So having a power user mentality where they can easily share their creations with less technical users is so important as well, and sometimes forgotten, that being able to share the creations to close people is important.
So I very strongly support this ethically, morally, and practically, even though I'm kind of at the fringes of it. One thing though, as a real world example, the programming that my guys do for me for author and reader is done in Xcode. Xcode on the surface is actually quite accessible, but not really. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I have to send away for people to do, such as change the text in this dialog box. That is quite ridiculous. So that's an example, I think, of where there should be a layer on top where changing the variables, changing the displayed stuff, without changing how things relate, should be literally a pop-up or a dialog, like a safe place to enter. So I could imagine, especially in Fabian world, that, I tap on a box and I don't get all the access that Adam does, but if it comes to this one now represents ice cream, yeah, I should be able to do that. So I'm firmly on board with the importance of this.
So,
and it can yeah.
Very quickly, I don't want to program. I program because I don't have a choice. Like things they don't exist, so I need to force them into existence. But I'd rather like just dance around and move stuff around and etc. So let's say I put code last, but it should still be like a first-class citizen. It should still be editable and codable if there is no other choice. But the goal is not to code. The goal is you do the task itself. But if you can't, you can backtrack, you can go deeper, and then you can do the thing, including coding. But yes, they should not be like, you should not be into an empty world where there is nothing and you need to code it from scratch, except if you want to. But otherwise, if you can just do the thing, just do the action, and ideally efficiently and with minimal onboarding, that's definitely what I also prefer.
I think there is not an obligation, but a strong perhaps an obligation for us programmers to expose a few variables to the users a bit more, like we have in the Stone prototype, the reading distance. But I can easily imagine like 10 other things that could be sliders or something it could be a hidden menu somewhere, but so you have the opportunity as a user to test out yourself and help out the testing as a pro. And I do it for myself sometimes when I need to change many variables. I try to expose it as live sliders where I can tweak many things in place in the real thing, and not just through code and then reload, but to tweak it live so I can save a design that I will like. And I think we should expose more of that to the users, both for individual reasons, but also for helping out testing, improving for everyone. So we should do that in our prototype if we can.
You know, they say the best mathematicians are lazy because they always look for some kind of a hack so they don't have to do the whole thing. I think that probably goes for programmers too. You know, Fabian was just saying he doesn't want to have to, but he will do it in order to get the job done, to get the functionality. I think that's a very, very powerful attitude. And we all have different levels of what that means. Yeah, so, oh yeah, we're out of time actually, our 2-hour meeting, but yeah, so in principle, we need to make this open, not just in a checkbox for Sloan, but we need to make it open so that, oh yeah, you have to show this, but just 2 more seconds. We need to make it open so that anybody can add a component and reroute this stuff, ideally. I'm not saying we can do it all this year, but also it should be easy for somebody to build a thing that the end user can then interact with the system. Right, yes,
Yeah.
what is happening here from you?
So what's happening here is it's also to give a live illustration to Adam's point about exposing variables. So the name of my software, which is not really software, is Spatial Scaffolding. And because I think scaffoldings are really cool, because I don't think you can build anything complex without a scaffolding, but I think we don't need to hide it. And I bought some different Lego kits with electronics, like to learn robotics and programming, including for kids 6 and above, which I think is very exciting. But I also bought like the spaceship, like the Artemis, and it has with it the SLS, they call it the launch system, with some little a lot of details. But the one that is obvious, and I think a lot of people hate, is the scaffolding, which I find amazing. It's like you're not going to send anything to space or anything important without a scaffolding. And if you can learn how it works, if you can expose variables, if you can make the code editable, you should be proud of your scaffolding. And I think if we can do this, both for ourselves, for academic, for any kind of user, it can be empowering, beautiful, and then we can reach new heights. So I think it's very. I'm not finished. I think we never are, but I have kind of this symbolic thing at home. I like it.
And there is a kind of the Art Nouveau thing that in Brussels there are so many beautiful Art Nouveau houses, and they have this interesting philosophy of showing scaffolding but making it ornamental or beautiful in itself. So there are opportunities to show code in a nice typographical way, to do interface elements in a nice beautiful way. So if we can have a beauty perspective on that as well, so it's not just I know that many people are off put just by the looks of scaffolding because it's seldom designed, perhaps inside an Apple product or in a beautiful Belgian townhouse it could be, but we could have that ambition as well to make the inside beautiful as well, stylistically.
It's a really excellent example, and I think in terms of intersection of things we couldn't be without each other, I think fraud, this is well, for example, where I would need your help, where I often say, oh, I don't care about the aesthetics, and it's not even true. It's not more that I don't take the time or I don't maybe have the confidence for it, but I think the example here that you gave, Adam, was beautiful scaffolding. It's something, for example, even without few beers, but even so this weekend with few beers, I would really love explore more.
I have things to say on this before we go, for sure. I texted you guys an image of a cathedral, and those buttresses sticking out, they are scaffolds, of course, and they are beautiful. So I think that is really, really important. Also, it turns out the word scaffold is actually French, so that's a bit of a downer. Just kidding. So I'm Norwegian, and Norway is a very civilized country at the moment. Sweden too, I'm sure, but you know. And the reason for that is not because Norwegians are genetically or ethnically calm and clever people. Absolutely not. We used to be Vikings. We did all kinds of things. I would say it's the social and legal scaffolding that allows you to flourish in some ways and constrain other things. It is really, really crucial. And within a software system too, it is so important because software can potentially let you do everything, but every single decision the software designers make scaffolds you in some direction. So having that exposed and interactable in many different ways, both for a piece of tool and environment and as a general thing so users know this, is crucial. So I'm really grateful for you showing us that.
Okay, I have to run now. I have lots of things to do. It's a busy afternoon. I look forward to continue this with or without beers this weekend as well. Now I'm even more sure that we have lots of things, super interesting things to explore. And perhaps we can do some architecture as well. Go somewhere in an interesting architectural place to get inspiration in the physical space.
That's not a bad idea. I'm just writing a note here. Boom. Also, please text me or email me whatever drinking preferences. Beer,
Yes.
wine, whatever. I have to admit, I'm on the cocktail side of things when we go out, because why drink the same thing you can drink in a bottle at home when we go out, but not everybody agrees. So anyway, Adam, will you be here later today or not today?
I really can't. I'm double or triple booked. It is lots of things today.
That's fine. Fabian, will you be here later today?
Yes.
Okay, I'll upload this obviously as well in the meantime. All right, see you guys as soon as possible and later in the week properly. Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.